Hello, everybody. Good day. I welcome you to the 5th Global R&D meeting today. Please, let's go to the next slide and look what kind of cool agenda we have for you today. So we have a number of updates and a few demos today. First, there was the ICP party at Token 2049 in London like 2 weeks ago. So we want to talk about that. Some things that happened on the website. Then there will be an update about SNS1 and what is SNS1. Cool project around WebSockets on the IC, and like an update on node provider remuneration and self-declaration. Then we move to the demos around high replication subnets, coding Bitcoin and ZK-BTC ledger. And then we will conclude with the demo by the community by UnfoldVR. Yeah, let's get started on the updates. I guess the first one is a report about Token 2049 in London. It was an event we had organized around Token 2049 in a pub or a restaurant or bar, I guess. In London, we had about 185 people joining. And I must say, I was very impressed with the sentiment there. It was, like in a bear market, you would expect not that kind of sentiment, but there really was a lot of excitement about the internet computer, about what can be built on the internet computer, and how, because we are going to change the world together. Like a ton of people showed me what they are building, showed me some dApps, some tools they are building. They wanted to show me their GitHub repositories with code that they're doing for the internet computer. And personally, I really found that tremendously inspiring and also very motivating. And so I just want to communicate that feeling back to you here today. And yeah, let's go to the next slide. I mean, I guess part of also getting that feeling out to the rest of the world for people that had not the pleasure to join that party. So let's get the word out here. And I guess it's also like a mind shift, a focus shift that we're doing inside our R&D. It means that we want to focus more on explaining the internet computer. How does it work? How is it different from other blockchain? Why is it different? And how much more you can do with the internet computer than you can do on other blockchains. It also means that we do a shift towards more an entrepreneurial thinking about use cases. Whenever we work on a product, on a feature, on a new feature, we're going to think about use cases, show sample use cases, but end to end also, so that people out there can use those with some sample dApps. We also want to show that great things are indeed built on the internet computer. So it means we want to shift focus towards making developers that we do have that are building on the internet computer successful. I want to help them address bottlenecks, address pain points that these projects are having. In the same sense, we want to get more developers on the internet computer and enable them to build new cool stuff. And I guess after all, the developers and dApp users are the best marketing tool that provides social proof that the internet computer is actually a very cool thing. And here, really, like everybody non-DFINITY in the call today, we need your help here. I just think that's a joint endeavor, and all of you building on the internet computer. The foundation is, of course, the fundament, or the internet computer is the fundament you're built on. Your applications on, and so let's all work together that this foundation is the best it can be, and also make sure more people come, because that will make it better. The more people we have building on internet computer, the better it will become. And yeah, the next slide along those lines. So you might have noticed that actually now the website of internetcomputer.org is fully on-chain. There's no part of it that is not run on the internet computer. So that shows what cool stuff can actually be on the internet computer. So please go there, have a look. And also, actually, the DFINITY.org is still hosted elsewhere, but that will be also moved fully onto the internet computer as soon as we can. And really, the internetcomputer.org website, I mean, that's, like, it's not something the DFINITY Foundation owns. I mean, it is on the blockchain. And we really invite everybody to contribute. If you want to add your project, if you want to explain something better, just go there and make a pull request. In order to do so, you can just go to the GitHub DFINITY portal or scan the QR code there and just make a pull request. That's it. It's as simple as that. Of course, as with many other open source projects, there will be some automated tests that will be run to check your PR. And there's some reviewers that maybe give you feedback on your code, on your contribution, and eventually accept it. And actually also here right now, the reviewers are all from the DFINITY Foundation. But if you want to become a reviewer for that, by all means, reach out, and we're happy to talk to you and see how we can set this up. So really, we're looking to many contributions from the community, and let's make this website even much nicer together. I think it's already tremendously nice, to compliment the team who worked so hard on that website. Okay, next slide. So you might have read on Twitter something about SNS1 airdrops. You might were lucky enough to qualify for an airdrop, like an SNS1 token being airdropped to you. You might have seen some proposals to the NNS that were related to SNS1. And so I guess you might have been wondering, what the heck is SNS1? So Laura, please, what is SNS1, and can I now launch my own SNS as well?
Thank you, Jan. We're not yet there, but almost. So SNS1 is the very first SNS that we started launching this week, and I'm really excited to tell you all about this. But just for those of you who do not follow everything, let's recap very quickly what an SNS is. So an SNS is a DAO, a governance system that governs a DApp. So much like the NNS governs the full internet computer, a service nervous system, or SNS, will govern one decentralized application or DApp. So there will be one SNS for one DApp, which means there will be many SNSs. And this SNS1 that we started launching this week is just one instance of such an SNS. Next slide, please. So let's also briefly talk about why are we even doing that, or why should we care about DAOs and therefore about SNSs. So in Web 2-like settings, smart contracts are often controlled by a central team, as you can see on the left. This is a bit unfortunate for the users in that they have to trust the central team, for example, not to just stop supporting the DApp or to evolving it in something they don't like. In more Web 3-like settings on the right, there are two kinds of canister controls that are kind of out there. So the first one is immutable smart contracts. On the IC, we call the solution for this usually the black hole controller. This is already a bit better for users because at least they know what to expect. They know that the code will never change. However, the disadvantage of the code not being mutable is, of course, that you can also not fix bugs or security issues. So yeah, there's also a negative side to not being able to evolve. And the other option are DAOs. In a DAO, the control of the DApp is handed over to a whole community, and everyone can really become part of this community and contribute to deciding how the DApp will evolve. So in this setting, the users really become owners and controllers of the DApp. And that means they don't have to trust one central party anymore, but at the same time, it's still possible to evolve the smart contract. So this is really the main motivation why we want to have SNSs. On the next slide, we can now see how an SNS is launched, so on a very high level. In a first step, SNS canisters are installed on a special SNS subnet. In the next step, then an NNS proposal is sent out. And the purpose of this NNS proposal is to start a so-called decentralization sale. In this decentralization sale, a portion of the tokens will be sold to the public. So if the NNS approves this proposal, the decentralization sale will start and everyone can participate, contribute ICP to get SNS tokens in return. And if the decentralization sale successfully ends, that's really the point of genesis of the SNS DAO. So from this time on, the SNS DAO is fully functional and decentralized. Now on the next slide, I want to focus a little bit, what does this mean for you? Or what does that mean for all of us as users? Like, what are we supposed to do in each of those steps, or what is expected from us? So in the very first step, when the NNS canister is installed, there's no per se UI for that, but you can already find the canisters on chain and you can interact with them if you want to. Then in the next step, once the NNS proposal is sent, the NNS neurons are supposed to look at the SNS. They can, for example, look at the canisters, how they are initialized, how the tokens are distributed in the canisters. And then we can all together make a decision whether we want to adopt or reject that proposal. In the next step, when the decentralization sale has started, everyone can participate in the sale. So even people who don't have ICP yet can get ICP and then participate in the sale. And in the very last step, everyone who did participate in the sale will get some SNS tokens in neurons. And this is also the moment where these airdrop neurons will be received that Jan already mentioned. And everyone is then, by having these neurons, a participant of the SNS DAO and can henceforth decide what happens to the debt that is assigned to this SNS. So I hope I know this was quick, but I hope this was a useful recap of kind of what an SNS launch goes through. And now let's go into a little more detail about this SNS1, which is basically the first SNS that will go through all of these stages. So this is a slide that I copied from a past presentation because I just want to recap this. So SNS1 is really a dress rehearsal. So we want to test the deployment and everything about the SNS once in production. And we want to invite everyone in this fun experiment to participate in this live system testing, basically. So this should really be fun, but it should also educate all the users so that all of us know what it looks like to go through all of these stages that we have just seen before we then launch a more serious or an actual DApp SNS. Okay, so let's go on the next slide. So where are we in this process with SNS1? As I mentioned in the beginning, we have installed the SNS canisters this week, and we have handed over an SNS1 DApp canister to this SNS. So this is now controlled by these SNS canisters already. And now I said there's no UI, but you can find the canisters already and kind of play around with them. And because we want to really everyone be part of this journey and join us in this launch process, I want to explain a little bit how you can do that on the next slides. So you can also do all of that on a command line tool, for example, the effects. But if you prefer interacting with the website, as I do, you can also do that on the dashboard. And that's why I want to explain this way, basically. So first of all, we have to find the canisters of the SNS1. And how we do that is we look for the SNS was a module canister. This is an NNS canister that basically knows about all the SNSs. So we can enter the ID of this canister that you can see on the left in the search bar of the dashboard. And this will lead us to one page which has all the information of this canister, including the controllers and also all the methods that this canister has. We can then find the method list deployed SNSs that you see on the right and click call. And this gives us back a list of all the SNSs that are currently there. Because it is the first SNS that we just installed, this only gives us back one entity. And you can see here that the canisters really exist, and you can also find the IDs of them. So what we can do, for example, now is copy the ID of the root canister and go to the next slide. So you can again go to the dashboard of this canister by entering it in the search bar. And the reason why we want to look at SNS root is that this is the canister that upgrades all the SNS canisters and the DAP canisters that are controlled by the SNS. So that's why basically this is the canister that has the information of all the canisters. And indeed, there's this method list SNS canisters that we can call. And as you see in the picture, this will return us the ID not only of the SNS canisters, but also of the DAP. So you can now proceed in this way and copy this and look at all the canisters in more detail, really play around with it. You can see on top of each canister page who is the controller of this canister. In the governance, you can, for example, look which neurons are already there, or on the ledger, you can see who already owns tokens. And if you do all of that, I just want to summarize what you hopefully find on the next slide. So I quickly want to mention what this SNS1 DAP is. So it consists of two canisters. First, there's this asset canister. Basically, that is what you'll find when you enter this URL. You'll see this dot, and if you click on it, you will at some point see a letter. The idea is that this letter should be immutable forever. That's why it is actually in a separate canister that you see on the right. So this canister is black hole, and the asset canister is really owned by the SNS. So you see here, we kind of have both of these versions of the canister control in this example. And if you now look at this canister on the dashboard, you can find out on the next slide, please, that this is really owned by SNS root. And if we go one more slide, this is what you will also find, that this SNS root canister also governs all these other SNS canisters. So I know that this was pretty quickly, but I really just wanted to give you an introduction of how you can poke around these canisters, see what's there. And if you go on the next slide, we actually wrote a more detailed instruction how you can do that on the wiki. And we also have a new landing page for the SNS and more developer documentation. So we really want to invite everyone to read those things and play around with the canisters and get as excited about them as we are. That was it from my side. Jan, back to you.
Thank you, Laura. Really looking forward to how this SNS1 DApp develops and what the community is going to do with it, how it will look in a year from now or even like 2 months from now. So yeah, let's see how this turns out. The next one up, we have WebSockets, and I mean, the Internet computer is already the only blockchain that can serve web, where canisters can also reach out via HTTP calls to the web. And of course, the natural question is came from our community, in particular psychedelic, is, hey, why not also talk to the Internet computer via WebSockets? And yeah, Rüdiger, what's up with that?
Yes, thanks, Jan. So I will tell you exactly what we've been up to with regards to WebSockets. And as Jan said, all of you who are active on the forum have seen that the topic of WebSockets comes up again and again, not just from psychedelic, from many different developers. And in particular, this August, psychedelic made this post that I show here, outlining an initial design of how we could enable WebSockets on the IC. Now, we at DFINITY, we have also been thinking about WebSockets every so often, and we thought this is now a great opportunity to team up with Psychedelic DAO and work on this together. And now, in the next few minutes, I will tell you what we have been working on. So if we can please go to the next slide. In the end, right, the goal would be that we can allow canisters to maintain WebSockets with their clients. However, this is quite a big undertaking, and this is why we first aimed to come up with a design and build a proof of concept that requires minimal changes to the IC core, such that we can quickly see all the requirements and challenges involved with enabling WebSockets on the IC. And now the big question is, why WebSockets? Jan already hinted at it, that yes, we want to serve dApps 100% from the chain. We already enable a lot of things, and the natural next step is WebSockets. So what do WebSockets allow us? It basically allows a connection between the front end and the back end, which in our case is a canister. And this connection can be used in both directions. And most interestingly, it can be used to push information from the backend, the canister, to the client. Now, if you think of examples, right, this could be dynamic content updates. So you have dApps like Discover that can update or push new posts, new comments directly to their clients. Or you could think of notifications in messaging apps like OpenChat, where you directly push the new incoming messages to the clients. Or, for example, a wallet like Plug Wallet could, the backend could push the latest transactions or update the holdings in the wallet. And how we want to do this, as I said, we want to come up with a proof of concept design. And we actually worked on this together with Psychedelic, and we followed quite closely what they outlined in their forum post. So a WebSocket traditionally requires a one-to-one connection between client and backend. And this is not really a natural fit for the IC, where the canister is replicated across multiple machines in a subnet. So what we do is we use a gateway, which acts as an intermediary between the client and the canister on the backend. And this gateway provides, on the one hand, a WebSocket interface for the client. So the client can establish this one-to-one connection, and the gateway interfaces with the canister hosted on the IC. In addition, we provide a library both for the front end and for the back end, which takes care of managing all the connections, takes care of certification, and takes care of interfacing with the gateway. Now, this is really a proof of concept design, which we have been working on. We also updated the forum thread that Psychedelic started. I linked it here, and we're really looking forward to all your comments and feedback. So please either scan this QR code or go to the forum and just search for WebSockets, and probably the first hit that you will have will be the thread. And yep, that was already all of it. Just before I hand back to Jan, I would like to thank Psychedelic, especially Janice and Austin Parsa, for the collaboration so far. And yeah, it was great working with them on working out the design. And I'm curious to see what we have for you in store soon. Back to you, Jan.
Thank you, Rüdiger. Last time you've spoken about how the internet computer needs more node providers, also just more node providers by the numbers, but also more node providers in different geographies. Sven has the update on this for us. Please, Sven.
Yes, thank you, Jan. And again, this is a topic that's also a very active topic on the forum. So feel free to join on any discussion on node decentralization and the topics I'm going to discuss right now. Just to recap from the Global R&D in October, the IC network has already been quite decentralized compared to, let's say, the launch date. So in a year, as you can see from this slide, we've grown from about 450 nodes to 1,200 nodes. We've grown in terms of number of different subnets, as well as in data centers. We now have 40 data centers on which all the IC nodes are running. But as you can see from this table, especially on the items that are in bold, there hasn't been much change in terms of node providers and geographies. And that's, of course, something that if the IC really wants to grow towards a decentralized network, it shouldn't not only be on, let's say, the blockchain and the application level, but also on the infrastructure level. And for that reason, we have initiated an activity to onboard new node providers. Already, there have been updates in the global R&D on the next generation hardware that is being proposed to use in this more, let's say, decentralized network, as well as on the onboarding process. There's active work going on defining and testing different runbooks so that the onboarding of a new node provider can be done completely autonomous of DFINITY, so that in the end, in the future, hopefully the sooner the better, anybody can submit a proposal to become a node provider and onboard based on the proposal sent to the community instead of to DFINITY. But there are two related topics there that also need attention, and those are the node provider remuneration and the node provider self-declaration. And that's what I briefly going to talk about in the next slides. So if you go to the next slide, the first topic is remuneration. As it currently works, and that's not going to change, is the remuneration to node providers is done based on estimates of the CapEx expenditure, so basically the hardware cost, and the OpEx expenditure, which is all the, let's say, the manual work, as well as, for example, network connections that node providers need to pay in order to run their nodes. That process is still the same, so that's to put it on a high level, that's guided by the network nervous system for most of the rewards. But since the network has grown, there's of course less risk with onboarding new node providers. And in the past, there was a risk premium of about, let's say, a multiple of about 4 in order to stimulate node providers to join the IC network. But since we're now more or less in a stable IC network and we've got less outages, the risk premium probably is lower. But on the other hand, CapEx and OpEx expenditures might be higher because we've got new generation of hardware that is currently being verified. And as well as in the current inflationary, let's say, environment, operational expenses are, of course, higher. So for that reason, there has been an update on the CapEx and OpEx estimates. We've put it in an updated remuneration table that has been posted on the forum as well as on the wiki. And we've submitted that as a proposal for feedback from the community. We're currently gathering the feedback from the different community members. And based on that feedback, we will finally update the node remuneration table based on that feedback and making sure that it's automated within the NNS. Please note that it's an interim proposal because, of course, like we discussed in other previous global R&Ds, for the future, of course, you want to go to a fully automated reward system that maybe also includes penalties for nodes being down. And that's completely guided by the NNS without any interference of anybody else and completely managed by the community. So if you go to the next slide, I've shown a summary of the table that can be found on the wiki, on the Internet Computer Wiki. Here you see the rewards table for new node providers for the US in Florida, the EU and Asia. Those are estimates based on hardware quotes that we have received, as well as estimates for operational expenses taking into account the inflation. So for example, if you take the second line with US Florida, you will see that the hardware cost is estimated for about 16,000 XDR, which comes about roughly said $20,000 US for a node. Operational expenses are slightly higher, and that translates, if you calculate it upwards, to about 64,000 XDRs over 4 years, and per month 1,300 XDRs, which is roughly $1,700 US. So you can look at it on the wiki and feel free to comment if you have any feedback on that, and looking forward to any feedback on remuneration. And based on that, we will submit a proposal to the NS for this. If you go to the next slide. Yes. The second topic is regarding node provider self-declaration. What's self-declaration? Basically, a self-declaration is a statement of a person who wants to become a node provider that he actually is the person that he is. The reason why there's a proposal for a self-declaration form that's being signed by a potential new node provider is twofold. First of all, of course, the node provider onboarding process needs to be fully automated in the future. We want to include it in the NNS, but it will be very difficult for the community members, of course, to assess whether a node provider is actually really the person or the company that he says that he is. So we need to implement some kind of a KYC, know your client process for that. And for that reason, we propose to follow a three-step approach. We can, when a node provider on board, we can, of course, validate that the node is actually up and running. And we can also validate that he's running actually the hardware that he is supposed to do. And we can include that as part of the NNS. And secondly, of course, a node provider has some kind of stake in the IC network because the node provider needs to pay for the hardware upfront and receives over a period of time, let's say a period of 4 years, receive their rewards back of their investment. But that's missing the part that community members are able to assess the actual identity of the node provider. And for that reason, on the forum and on the wiki, we've prepared a small self-declaration form as a proposal in which the potential new node provider states actually who he is, and that can be based, for example, on a Chamber of Commerce number of the node provider, and also states that he's actually running the hardware that he's supposed to do, and also does not in the future or now intend to have any malicious intentions with acting as a node provider. The proposal is currently being discussed on the forum, and if you go to the next slide, please, there you see a short summary of what's actually part of the proposal. Like I say, it is a statement of the identity of the business entity. It also is a sort of guarantee from the node provider that he actually has set up the machines in accordance with the hardware specification, and thirdly, also a declaration that he has good intentions. Feel free to look at that proposal. It's still work in progress. There's a lot of work to be done. One of the next steps probably we have in mind is once a potential node provider has the document and also signs it, that we include the hash, for example, of that document into the NNS proposal, that actually community members can check the NNS proposal against this self-declaration form. But we're really looking forward to feedback on this topic because it's completely greenfield. It has never been done before. There's no examples of, let's say, know your client processes in decentralized environments. So feel free to look at the wiki post and the forum post, and looking forward to any comments on that. That's it for me. Back to you, Jan.
Thank you, Sven. I guess we cannot state enough that the self-declaration proposal is really like a game changer in my view, quite a different things and very important. We are already a bit behind of time, but so I encourage you to go to Dom Williams' blog post around this and see why this brings us more security. And with that, let's move on to the demo. The first one is on high replication subnets. I mean, you might have seen there's fewer subnets of different sizes, and maybe your question here is, hey, how can I put my canister on one of those high replication subnets? So Dimitri, how can I do that?
Yeah, thank you, Jan. Hi, everyone. I'm Dimitris from the execution team, and today I'm going to show you how you would be able to choose to have your canisters created on a high replication subnet. So a quick recap, a high replication subnet that will be available to users will be introduced in the following weeks. The cost of it will scale linearly with the number of nodes. But why are we doing this, and why we want to have this kind of heterogeneous subnets with different sizes? Well, different sizes will cater for different use cases. So, for example, a high replication subnet will provide you more security, whereas a low replication subnet could be ideal for cheap storage and lots of that. And so how we're going to do that, users will be able to select where to deploy their canisters through DFX by choosing one of these special types of subnets I will introduce. You might have heard the terms like fiduciary subnets or storage subnets before. So without further ado, let's jump into the demo. First, I'm gonna explain the setup a little bit. So it's pretty simple actually. On the left, I have a terminal window, and I have a very simple DFX project. It's basically the starter project from the website, and I'm gonna use it to demonstrate the canister creation. And on the right side, I have a few subnets from a testnet that I'm using. The first one is the one that we'll use as the high replication subnet or the fiduciary subnet. And the other two, we can just install canisters normally there. They're not going to be special for this demo. So first, let me show you how you can check what are the available types. So there's going to be this new show subnet types command in DFX. So you can see here it's empty. So let's first add a type, right? So the types are managed by the NNS. So the way to add types and assign subnets to those types will happen through proposals. So let's start by adding a new type. You'll see here, this is the IC admin tool that we use internally to submit proposals. And there's a new proposal type. And the interesting part here is that I'm adding this new fiduciary type. In this case, obviously, there's not going to be any voting, right? I'm using a testnet, so I kind of have superpowers, but of course, that will be open for voting by the community. Cool, so we have a new type. And now we can also assign the subnet. So if we compare here, this is the subnet ID, and you can see I'm using the subnet ID here, and I'm trying to add it to this fiduciary type. So let's do that. Cool. So we have the subnet assigned, and now what we can do is create some canisters on this subnet type, right? So you can see here. I'm using the subnet type fiduciary in the DFX ledger command, which is what you would normally use to create a canister. So if I use this, it's going to take a couple of seconds. But what we expect is that we'll see a canister appear on the dashboard on the right. All right, so, and indeed, when I refresh, I can see the canister. So let's try this again, just to make sure that the canister is always created on this subnet. And just as a reminder, so this is gonna be available for users to use, like when they're creating canisters, but when you're creating a canister from another canister, the current behavior will remain, which is that the canister goes like on the same subnet. So we have a second canister, and of course it's on the same subnet. So the final thing I want to show you is that if you don't use this new argument, you basically fall back to the current behavior, which is one subnet will be chosen at random, just like it happens today. So let's confirm this real quick. So what we should see here is that we're not going to get a canister on this first subnet, and indeed it's not here. So maybe it's here. No, here. Okay, yeah. So second of the other two subnets. Yeah, and I hope you find this useful. As you can see, it's kind of easy for you to choose the subnet you like. And that's all I had for today. So back to you, Jan.
Thank you, Dimitris. Looking forward to use that myself. The next demo up is on coding Bitcoin, and I guess this is almost a traditional demo that we have. And I guess you might have the question as well here, when can I finally send some Bitcoin over to my canister? And can my canister benefit from the fast finalization rate of the IC? Manu and Leo, where are we?
Thanks, Jan. Hey, everybody. I'm Manu. Yeah, so together with Leo, we'll give an update on where we stand with the whole coding Bitcoin or Bitcoin integration efforts. I'll start by giving some overview of the big picture, and then Leo is going to demo some of the new cool stuff that we're building. So what is this coding Bitcoin? It's an effort to let canister smart contracts running on the IC hold and transfer native Bitcoin. So the canister controls real Bitcoin, which lives on the Bitcoin blockchain. We want to do that because we think that the ICP, that the internet computer has a lot of superpowers that that we want to bring over to other ecosystems, right? So we can have smart contracts in a scalable and very fast and cheap way. And now we can use all this cool stuff also with Bitcoin. And this way we can make the internet computer sort of a hub in a multi-chain world. And this Bitcoin integration is like one part of that. How are we doing this? We're building two APIs, two new interfaces that canisters can make use of. One that allows a canister to read the Bitcoin blockchain state, so the UTXOs, and it can send transactions to the Bitcoin network. And one interface that lets a canister securely sign messages with ECDSA. So behind the scenes, there's threshold cryptography involved, and this allows a canister to sign transactions on other blockchains. Next slide, please. So in this picture on the right, we kind of try to depict a slice of the internet computer, and you see that the canisters that users interact with are on top, and then we see more of the internals down below. And now I want to focus on these more internals down below. So what we're working on, these new APIs, are really developer facing. So as an end user, you just want to use a cool dApp. This is not for you. This is really for developers to build a cool dApp with, and then end users can use that dApp. These APIs are actually already available. So we have a test key that you can use right now, and Bitcoin access for Bitcoin testnet is enabled. So these are all things that have already been running for a while. But now the next step, I'm very excited to share that we're working very hard to enable Bitcoin mainnet access and a secure ECDSA key by the end of next week, so very soon. And with that, I would also like to encourage all developers, please think about if you can take advantage of these cool new features. I shared a link here to the developer documentation. Also, there's code examples that you can find there. And we have some grants if you have very cool new ideas how to make use of Bitcoin integration or ECDSA. So yeah, so you can also take a look at that. Then, so in the previous slide, we talked about these lower layers, the technical APIs that developers can make use of. Now we're going to talk about one canister that is user-facing that DFINITY is building. And that canister is what we call CKBTC. It stands for Chain Key Bitcoin. And you can think of this as wrapped Bitcoin. So you can deposit real Bitcoin, and then you receive an IC native token that follows the token standard ICRC1, and vice versa. So you can get your Bitcoins back if you want to give your CKBTCs away. And we do this because canisters can hold native Bitcoin, but of course, native Bitcoin is still quite slow and expensive. And CKBTCs will be running on the internet computer, so they run at the IC speed and have low fees. So you might think I've already heard of wrapped Bitcoin. How is this new? How is this exciting? And very often these wrapped tokens are in my view, done in a bit of a centralized way. There's some party that maybe issues these tokens, and that party, maybe you can go there to redeem your underlying assets. But if that party disappears, then your wrapped asset might lose their value. And we actually saw this happening very recently on Solana. So on Solana, you had SOBTC and SOETH that were managed by FTX. So you use FTX to receive your Bitcoins back when you return your SOBTCs. But then with FTX disappearing, these wrapped tokens suddenly lost all their value because you couldn't do anything with them anymore. So this should obviously not be possible. So the key distinguishing factor for CKBTC is that it's actually a smart contract, a canister that does this wrapping and unwrapping. So this is possible due to the native Bitcoin integration. It builds on that. And so this canister is like unstoppable. It's you can audit it. It's under the control of the NNS. So you know this can be trusted and it will not disappear. And And it's fully transparent. You can always see that which UTXOs it controls on the Bitcoin blockchain. So you know that your assets are truly back there and not not disappearing. CKBTC will be launched later. This is not so next week we're focusing on these low-level APIs. Next slide, please. So then, as an introduction, we're going to now see a demo of CKBTC. And to give you a quick preview, what we're going to do is deposit real Bitcoin, or I guess testnet Bitcoin, in a specific deposit address. So this is going to be a Bitcoin transaction to an account controlled by an internet computer canister. Now we tell this canister called the CKBTC minter, hey, we gave you these Bitcoins, please give me the right amount of CKBTCs back. Now I have a fast token which lives on the internet computer. I can send it around very quickly. And then at the end, I might say, hey, CKBTC minter, I give you these CKBTC tokens back. Can I please have my real Bitcoins at this Bitcoin address? And now a real Bitcoin transaction follows to give me my underlying Bitcoins back. So with that, I'll hand it over to Leo. And can we also please grab the screen?
Thanks, Manu, for this introduction. I will now make the demo. First things I want to mention is that this front end is not the one that you will interact with as the user. It's just for the sake of the demo. So everything is deployed on the internet computer mainnet, and we are using the Bitcoin testnet. So I will sign in to this front end using my internet identity. Okay, so let's sign in and see what a nice front end I made. So we are signed in. So we can see that for now, I don't have any CKBTCs. So if I want to have some CKBTCs, I will need to send some real Bitcoin to this Bitcoin address, which is generated by the Bitcoin minter, by the minter smart contract. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy this address. So here I have a Bitcoin wallet, which is connected to the testnet and is using the SegWit type of address, because this is the only type of address that we will support first. So let's send some testnet Bitcoin to this address. Let's send, I don't know, this much. Continue, send, and the payment is sent. And let's wait for the payment to be broadcasted to the node, to the validators. So what we can do is use a block explorer to see where is my transaction. Okay, here we go. So we can see that my transaction is here, but it's unconfirmed. So we will have to wait for some confirmations to go through, which is really slow on the Bitcoin blockchain. So for the sake of this demo, I made another deposit like a few hours before this demo. And I have a transaction which is confirmed. So if I call update balance, I should receive some CKBTCs that should appear just here. So let's call update balance. The minter canister will call the Bitcoin canister to see if the balance of the user has changed or not. And if so, mint some new tokens. Okay, nice. We have some CKBTCs now. So this token, they live on the IC. It's the wrapped Bitcoin. And I'm able to send them at the IC speed with a very low cost. So we can, for example, if I want to make a transfer, I can copy this principal, send, I don't know, some Satoshis, 10,000. I will have to use a sub account. So I just prepared this one, which is the first sub account, because my UI is not really great. So I have to do this. So now we can see, okay, so the transaction went through. So we can see that it's really not the same speed as on Bitcoin. It was really fast. And now if I call the balance of this account, I should see some CKBTCs. right. And I can see also that my balance has decreased a bit because I sent some CKBTC. So now we have some wrap token, which are really fast and have a low fee. And if I want to send them back to the Bitcoin blockchain, I can do this on using this this box. So first of all, I will have to transfer some CKBTCs to this address, and then I will be able to call retrieve Bitcoin. Okay, so let's copy this principle. Okay, and this sub account. How much do I want to send? Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I should have enough. Let's try. So we are doing a transaction on the IC. So we can see that my balance decreased a bit. And we can see that now I have some Satoshis that I can retrieve. So how I will do this, I will go on my Bitcoin testnet wallet. I will click receive. It will generate an address. I will copy this address and paste it here and click retrieve. So it will build the retrieve transaction, sign it using the threshold ECDSA, and then send it to the Bitcoin network. So we will have to wait like 30 seconds. If you have any questions, you can ask them in the chat. And also, if you want to try this demo, you like the front end is available on the Internet Computer Mainnet. So you are free to try it after this demo. I will put the URL in the chat. So here we go. We have the Bitcoin transaction and not found. I guess it's because I made a demo. So of course it doesn't work. Okay, so I just needed to refresh the page. So here we can see that I have my transaction that went through. It was sent directly from the Internet Computer to the Bitcoin testnet network. And we will have to wait for some confirmation to go through to be able to then use the Bitcoin on the Bitcoin testnet. So that's it for the demo. If you have any question, ask them in the chat and I will stay to answer your question. Thank you. Back to you, Jan.
Thanks a bunch, Leo and Manu. Very impressed with your work and also with how many times Manu was able to say CKBTC so fast. I'm excited to have George from UnfoldVR as our last the demo today. So yeah, we were gonna enter the metaverse. Really curious how this one looks. George, please take it away.
Hi, Jan. Thanks for introducing me. Some amazing demos were presented. I hope my presentation will stand up to them. So I prepared a video to briefly go through what UnfoldVR is, where we are in this process, and yeah, just share some of the updates that have been made. We very recently updated both our VR and web app, so I really hope you can check them out. So at UnfoldVR, we aim to decentralize asset creation and discovery for the metaverse. So why is that actually important? Well, when you think about the metaverse, we have this massive world component and then diverse avatars component because everybody needs to personalize themselves. So we see the metaverse as open, inclusive, and decentralized. And this implies there's a massive need for content and then incentives for creators to build that content. And that's actually where UnfoldVR steps in. So let's look at what exactly you can do in UnfoldVR. So this is me recorded a little while ago using mixed reality. I'm in the same UnfoldVR app that you can try today. Actually, we updated the UI a little bit. So you can create content very easily, very intuitively. You don't have to be a professional to generate this type of content. You have several tools that are pretty easy to use. And besides creating content, it's all about sharing the content. And there's several aspects of that. So here we see the latest version of our website where you can share the NFTs that you hold. Currently, these are NFTs from your wallet, but this will be very soon NFTs that you mint from UnfoldVR. So you can interact with them, you can use them in AR and so much more, and you can decide which NFTs you want to make public or not. So at the end of the day, the goal of UnfoldVR is to be a platform where you can create assets that then you share and distribute and take them outside of UnfoldVR into Shiku Metaverse, into IC 1101, and into other blockchains as well, because the underlying 3D format is universal, is GLTF. And finally, there's this question, okay, when is the full metaverse going to be realized? And that's probably many years into the future. So you still need to incentivize creators to build content. So we have a deep focus on discovery within UnfoldVR, where we want it to behave like kind of a VR TikTok, where creations made with UnfoldVR can be discovered within the platform itself. So this will incentivize creators to stay on the platform and kind of build and grow their audience, regardless of our other integrations with other metaverse projects. And we, like I said, UnfoldVR is actually two apps. It's the web app and the VR app, and these are paired through HTTP requests. So I just recorded this earlier. You log in with your internet identity on the web app. Then you, in this case, I was already paired with the VR app, but you can pair your wallet. It supports Plug and Stoic. Then after you pair, you can get to see the NFTs that you have in those wallets. And if we support 3D NFTs and 2D NFTs, these will be able to be brought into the VR app. And yeah, you have some other features here if you hold our Creator Glove as NFTs. And then if you open the VR app, this is the first thing that you'll see. It's a pairing code, much like you pair, I don't know, YouTube on your smart TV or your Apple TV. And if you type in this code in the web app and everything matches, then we essentially share your principal ID to the VR app, which runs natively on standalone VR headsets. So from that point on, the VR app essentially behaves like an on-chain app, because it can communicate with your principal ID to our canister, and it can download these assets. These are the NFTs that I was holding in my wallet, and it can write save game data. It can write all about your creations. So right now I'm joining in creating something with voxels. I'm seeing my Creator Glove, which was in my wallet when I paired this, and all of these drawings, as soon as I'm saving them, and now I'm doing that, they are instantly sent on the ICP network, and they are also displayed in the VR app. So those can be shared forward with other creators and creatives using UnfoldVR. There's many tools around UnfoldVR, such as these multiple lobbies, where you can customize them. Now, why the IC? There's many reasons why the IC is probably one of the best blockchains for this type of applications. But besides the technical utility and the decentralized nature of it, we need a blockchain that can achieve transparency and agnosticism. Because at the end of the day, for most apps, and for us in particular, the users are the VR community and young consumers. These are not necessarily blockchain enthusiasts. So we think IC is a great platform to achieve this, because we can kind of put the blockchain aspect behind the curtain, and the users only need to care that this is a decentralized platform that's running quite efficiently and well for them. So UnfoldVR aims to kind of build this infrastructure around the new immersive interactive creator economy, and we distinguish this from our existing creator economy, which is essentially based on static content like images and videos, and we see this new creator economy, which is very much focused on static content, right? Images and videos. Whereas the new creator economy, which is slowly shaping up, but steadily shaping up, we see these in the form of 3D files, real-time experiences, you know, and if you look at the stats, like Roblox paid developers over $500 million just last year to create experiences that, you know, kids use, and all the metaverse, or let's say proto-metaverse projects out there, they're doing pretty much the same thing. So that was it for me. I strongly encourage you to check out UnfoldVR if you haven't, or check it out again because we released so many new updates. And please leave us your feedback on Discord, on social media, and everywhere you kind of find us. Back to you, Jan.
Thanks, George. This is amazing. Luckily, Black Friday is coming up, and so I can finally buy a headset to try this myself. Yeah, with that, thanks everybody for joining. Mentioning Black Friday, have a nice Thanksgiving, everybody, or the rest of the week. And yeah, see you on December 14 in 3 weeks for the next iteration. Farewell.